It's been a little while, but I finally got back out to do some dollar bin diving. Plus, I picked up a book that's a personal key, and it puts me now just one book away from completing one of my all-time favorite runs. Check it out. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris, and this is North Garden Comics. It's been several weeks now since I've been able to share a dollar bin haul with you, and that's because really for the last couple of months I haven't gotten out to do any dollar bin diving. Some of that's been scheduled, some of that's been COVID related, but happy to report I was able to get out one more time, perhaps for the final time in 2020, to do some dollar bin diving. I want to say at the outset, special thanks to the guys again over at Most Wanted Comics. They are a local dealer here in the Twin Cities area. I contacted them on Facebook, just said, hey, could I get an appointment to come into your warehouse and do some long box diving? And they were very happy to oblige me, and so they set up an appointment. It was me alone in a room with like 100+ long boxes of comics. Most everything was $1 a piece. Then they had a bunch of stickered books, and all of those were half price. And I came home with about 24 books that I'm going to share with you today. In just a second, we are going to swing the camera around, and I'll show you those books close up. But first, let me say, if you like this kind of content, please take just a moment, hit that subscribe button. And as you watch, if you see something you like, give it a thumbs up. And as always, love to hear your thoughts, comments, and questions down below. That being said, let's swing the camera around and give you a closer look at these books. All right, first up, we've got a few Fantastic Four books. This is Fantastic Four Volume 1. First up is number 220. One of the things that I've been trying to put together is the John Byrne run on Fantastic Four. That didn't officially start until issue 232, but prior to that, he did some artwork, even as low as like issue 209, I want to say, and then up through the, 200 teens. But 220 is somewhat significant because this is not only his art, but this is the first issue he wrote the story. So I thought that would be pretty cool to add to my collection. Also, that's just a great red John Byrne cover, so that's fantastic. Happy to find that for $1. And then we've got number 221 as well. He didn't do the cover on this, but he did do the interior art. It does have what appears to be a pencil mark that goes across it, but at some point I may get into cleaning and might try to just erase that mark as I do that, so that could be a little experimentation. Couple more Fantastic Four books, and this is kind of funny because during this haul I realized a flaw in my my wish list and how I have it laid out. So I use the CLZ app to maintain my collection and my wish list, but one thing I realize I've neglected to do is as I add books to my wish list, I don't always remember why I've added books to my wish list, and this is a great example. I mean, it's part of the Road to Civil War story, Fantastic Four. I don't have any of the issues around it, so I could have picked this up or wanted to pick this up because of something to do with the Civil War story. I honestly can't remember, but I went with my wish list. I trusted it and got this and one other issue. And if for no other reason, I think it was a good call because you see the Hand of Doom there holding Thor's hammer, and then in issue 537, he's actually picking it up. So I don't know what's going on in the story itself. Don't remember why it's on my wish list, but we're going to give it a go. And since then, I've already kind of scrubbed my wish list a little bit, and if I didn't know why something was on my wish list or couldn't figure it out, I've removed it, or I've at least added notes to know why did I put that book on my wish list. So that way when I go to get things in the future, there's always choices you make, and I want to make sure that I prioritize books properly when I'm out there hunting and don't just get a book simply because it's on my wish list, but make sure it's something I want maybe more than something else. Here's an example. At the time I couldn't remember either why I had this on my wish list, because I'm not generally a collector of Hulk, his title, or books that he's in, but at the time, like I said, I couldn't remember why this was on my wish list. I figured worst case scenario, it's got this really cool reflective cover, and so that would be worth it for $1. Turns out I did remember later why I had this on my wish list. It's because There's a couple stories in here, being a milestone issue, and Chris Bacalo did the art for one of those stories. I checked it out, and honestly, I don't want to say that it wasn't impressive, but it wasn't the style that it really draws me to Chris Bacalo's art. It wasn't his characteristic style, so in that sense, I probably could have left it behind. Still has the cool reflective cover, but yeah, at least that's that I remembered why that one was there. Here is Hulk number 450. This one was on my wish list because this is part of the Heroes, does it mention? It just says they're alive, but this is part of the Heroes Return story. Again, in the 90s, when Marvel was having a rough time, they outsourced the editorial and writing and artistic duties for a handful of their major titles, and went to the hands of like Rob Liefeld, Jim Lee, and some others who were at Image Comics at the time. And so they were in charge of these books for like 13 issues, and then they brought them back to the main Marvel universe, and this Hulk issue ties into that story, so I picked that up for $1. The next 4 are from a miniseries. Sad to say, again, I don't remember why it was on my wish list to begin with. If I read that it was a good story, I don't know. But it's Saber Tooth and Mystique. They seem to do a lot of these 4-part limited series in the 90s, and I like both characters, so I don't regret picking them up, but they did have all 4 of them for $1 a piece, and I love it when you want a limited series and you're able to get them all at the same time. I have plenty of limited series that I've been working on that, I have 3 of the 4 issues or 2 of the 4 issues, and that's a pain because then you can't read the story. So nice when you can get them all at once and then just read the whole story in its entirety. This is my favorite cover of the 4. I just love how Sabretooth is positioned there. And yeah, it looks like these guys didn't fare so well against him. And then lastly, here's number 4 from that limited series, rounding that out. So looking forward to giving that a read. Next up is a Thor book. This is from the first volume of Thor, number 253. And nothing significant about this from a key perspective. It was key to me because it was the lowest Thor book that I have to date. So for $1, I figured I would grab that, and it was in good condition. Love those Bronze Age books, and so when they're cheap and they're characters that I like, I'm liable to pick them up. Here's another Thor book. This is Thor number 1. I think this is I don't know if this is volume 2, volume 3, because the title is Mighty Thor, and I don't recall offhand which volume that goes into or which title that follows. But I grabbed this because I've mentioned in other videos John Romita Jr.'s art. Sometimes I like it, sometimes not as much, but I've been wanting to put together this part of the run, at least the Romita Jr. run, and Dan Jurgens is writing at this point. I don't know how far through it he wrote, but at least these early issues is Dan Jurgens and Romita Jr., so I figured when I can pick those up inexpensively, I'll grab those and give those a read. Another Thor book here. This is, again, I don't recall which volume of Thor offhand, but Olivier Coipel is doing the art on this, and love his artistic style, so that's an issue for that volume that I've been putting together. Then we've got a Transformers book, one of my favorite franchises of all time. This is, I just grabbed it because it was there and it was a number 1. So Transformers Best of UK. So it's reprints of the Transformers UK title, and I believe this reprints issues 45 and 46 with an updated cover there. Nick Roche, and yeah, it's a nice Transformers book there for $1. Here we have 2 more issues of a series that was done in the 90s. I want to say it's the 90s. This is Joe Madureira, or Joe Mad. I found the first 2 issues of this self-created title. He's one of he is the creator of Battle Chasers. And I found the first 2 issues a little bit earlier in 2020 for 25 cents a piece. And in the warehouse today, these guys had at least issues 3 and issue 4 for $1. So I grabbed those. I think this ran for like 9 or 10 issues altogether. And I loved Joe Mad's art in the 90s. I loved it on the X-Men in particular is where I really got introduced to him. So as I find those earlier works of his, I like to grab those. The next several books represent a pretty good progress I've made on a volume that I've been working on. Well, I haven't been working on the whole thing since it came out. I have mentioned this before. I started collecting Excalibur from issue number 1 when it first started back in the late 80s, and only collected it for, say, the first 30 issues or so. And then in the last handful of years, I've decided, why don't I try to build out the rest of that run? So I've slowly been piecing that together as I could find these issues in good condition and at a good price. I will say, and I know this varies from region to region, but I tend to find Excalibur commonly in dollar bins and discount bins, not always in the best condition though. You'll see if they're not bagged and boarded, they have, scuffs on the side and things like that. So I'll usually hold out because I see them regularly enough that I can be patient, wait for the really, higher quality copies and still get them for like $1. And I'm very, very close now to completing this run. Today I was able to get issue 112, 113, and it went for 125 issues altogether. Here's 117, 118, and I will say they had a couple copies of a few of these, and I'll look them over to see which one's the better condition copy, the fewest spine ticks or marks, things like that. Try to get the best condition copy I can. And here's issue 119, and that's the last one I picked up. But as of now, with this little run that I got, I only need 2 more issues to complete the entire volume. I think it's issue 86, and then the final issue, issue 125. 86, I have confidence I'm going to find that just about any time. It's pretty common that I see that one. But issue 125, I have heard from at least one of you who left me a comment on a previous video that it's not too expensive when you find it. The problem for me is I haven't seen it. I don't see issue 125 at all, actually, in memory. So I'll keep my eyes peeled, but 2 more issues to go, and then this one will be done for me. And then this next book is kind of a key, and I'm really happy to have gotten it for $1. It's still not the one that I mentioned in the intro where I'm super excited about. We're going to get to that in a second. But second to that book, or second to last book here to show you, here's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 95. This is one of the keys because it's when Jennika, the 5th turtle, becomes a turtle. So she was not her first appearance. Her first appearance, see, I can actually grab it. Her first appearance, which I got at a different sale for $2, is this issue here, issue number 51. So I was able to get that for $2, earlier this year. But this issue is First Turtle. So first appearance where she turns into a turtle. So super happy to find that for $1. And I've heard really good things about this story, City at War. And so I don't know how hard some of those other parts of the story are to get, but I'll keep my eyes out, and if I can put that story together, would love to be able to read that. And now, drum roll, the last book I have for you is special in a couple ways. One way is that it's not a $1 book. I actually spent more than $1 on this book, and that's significant for me because most of the time, my sweet spot for back issue hauls is $1 or maybe $2 if I'm feeling sporty. And I generally consider anything above that to be, using air quotes, spendy. This I made an exception for, and I'll show you what the book is. This is Transformers, issue number 77 from volume 1. This is when Marvel Comics was doing the title. This is a book from my favorite run of all time, and the reason this Transformers run is my favorite of all time is because this is the title, this is the run that got me into comics to begin with. I was already collecting the Transformers toys, I loved the cartoon, loved the animated movie, and I at one point got into the comics and loved them, and collected most of them as they came out, so from like the mid-80s into the early 90s, but don't remember why now, but there were a handful of issues towards the end of the run that I just didn't get when they came out. And so they were all issues that were somewhere between number 70 and number 80, which was the final issue in the run, that I never got when they came out. And that's unfortunate because those were lower print runs as well, which means they're harder to find now. And if you do find them, you're going to spend more on them. It's not that they're particularly keys for any reason with first appearances of characters or things like that. They were just lower print runs. So I've had a few holes in my collection for years and years now, but I've wanted to close out that run, to fill it up. And I've been able to make some good progress and even find some really amazing deals for $1 a piece on a few of those books. But I'm at the point now where I have only 2 issues left. This one right here, number 77, and issue number 74. And on this particular day, I guess I just made the decision that though I like to find my books for $1 or $2, as I look around my room here, I have limited space. And at some point, I have to make choices and say, what am I going to have filling that space? Is it just going to be books that I got because they were $1 or $2? Or is it books that I really want to have in my collection? And I've been realizing more recently that I don't value all these books the same. And there are some I'd rather be taking up that space than others. And this is an example of something I'd like to be holding on to and, you know, occupying the space in my comic book room here. So I wound up spending $8 on this book. I say that because price tag is $20, but if you recall at the beginning, I said everything was 50% off if it was a sticker book. So that brings it down to 10. And when I checked out, and I was willing to spend 10, but then when I checked out, my total came to $32, and the guy said, just give me 30. So I saved an additional $2. So if I apply that here, this book really only cost me $8. And if you look at the market value of this book, that's a great price, and it's in very good condition. There is a crease across the back that I didn't see at the time, but even given that, I'm happy to have it in my collection. The pages are nice and white, and so we're always evolving in our collecting, I think, and we're making choices, and this was just a reminder that some books are in fact more important to me than others, and I'm willing to spend more than $1 or $2 on them. And you know, in an earlier video, I think it was Dude Without Fear, you asked the question, you know, would I spend more than $1 or $2, and what makes that criteria, or what makes that determination? I think here's an example. It's recognizing what are my personal keys and books that I really want to add to my collection, especially when I know I have limited space, and so I'm forced to make that decision. So that was helpful. So that was a great haul, and super, super happy to come home with this book. And now with that, only 1 book to go. Issue number 74 is the final issue I need to complete this all-time favorite run. All right, that's going to do it for me, and that's going to wrap up this final dollar bin haul of 2020. Special thanks again to the guys over at Most Wanted Comics for making it possible, for allowing me to make an appointment and to get in there and to have that really fantastic time of just long box diving all by myself in their warehouse. Seeing that you've made it to the end of the video, I certainly hope you saw something that you liked. If so, don't forget to do the YouTube thing. Like, subscribe, and of course, leave me your comments down below. As we are hitting the holiday season, I hope and wish for you all to have a great, fun, festive holiday season, however you celebrate. If any of that holiday time is spent watching some YouTube videos, well then I've got some links here you might want to check out. These are playlists that I've gathered together of short box showcases and dollar bin and other kind of cool cheap hauls where I show you good books that I get for great prices if you'd like some fun YouTube watching. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.